The skyscraper trembled with the weight of whispers as alarms blared across the trading floor, monitors flashing red with collapsing numbers. The board members froze, eyes wide, unable to comprehend how everything was unraveling in seconds. Daniel Carter said, "This cannot be real, not today." He stood at the head of the table, his grip tight on the polished wood, sweat breaking across his brow as the press broke the news. Across the glass walls, employees panicked, phones vibrating, voices shouting, a wave of fear spilling through every corridor. Olivia Brooks leaned closer, whispering, "They've leaked something catastrophic, Daniel." His chest tightened as screens displayed headlines accusing him of fraud, betrayal, and secret dealings. Shadows fell across his empire, built on relentless ambition and trust now torn apart. The betrayal had come suddenly, cutting deeper than any knife, and silence followed each blast of sound like the eye of a storm. Daniel's reflection on the glass trembled, fractured. A man caught in ruin as cameras outside swarmed for blood. The world had shifted in one merciless breath, and survival was no longer certain. The newsroom screens exploded with speculation as reporters fired questions into microphones, their voices drowning in chaos. Daniel Carter adjusted his tie, stepping into the flashing storm of cameras with a forced calm. He thought of the empire he had built, every sleepless night, every brutal decision, now collapsing in seconds. Olivia Brooks said, "You cannot fight them head-on, Daniel." He ignored her, lifting his chin, eyes scanning the sea of lenses aimed at his downfall. The board members had turned silent, withholding their support, and the press smelled blood. Each question was an accusation, each flash a blade cutting deeper into his reputation. Daniel's voice carried, "The truth will reveal itself," but his tone betrayed the cracks inside. The storm outside mirrored the storm within, and the empire's walls felt like glass ready to shatter. At home, silence filled the Carter estate like a heavy weight. Daniel Carter sat alone in his study, the walls lined with awards that now felt like accusations. The headlines glowed on his tablet, every word cutting into his pride. His wife, Emily Carter, said, "How much of this is true, Daniel?" Her voice trembled, eyes searching his for answers. He tightened his jaw, unwilling to show weakness, but the doubt in her tone pierced deeper than the journalist's questions. He muttered, "Not like this, not after everything I've built." The rain lashed against the glass windows, the storm relentless, a reflection of his spiraling world. The next morning, the boardroom was suffocating with silence. Every chair filled, but trust was absent. Olivia Brooks placed documents on the polished surface, her voice steady but sharp. "We need immediate answers." Daniel Carter glared across the table at Thomas Reed, his longtime CFO, who avoided his gaze with calculated stillness. The betrayal lingered in Daniel's mind, though the proof was still a whisper. Investors were already withdrawing, their calls constant, their confidence shattered. Daniel said, "This company does not fall today." But his words hung weak, drowned in the weight of suspicion. Shadows stretched across the boardroom, and every eye felt like a dagger. In the quiet of a private elevator, Olivia Brooks confronted Daniel Carter. Her tone was urgent, almost desperate. "There's someone feeding them information," she whispered. His pulse quickened, suspicion flickering across his mind like lightning. Every loyal face now seemed a mask hiding treachery. He clenched his jaw, saying, "Then we root them out, whoever they are." The elevator's hum carried their words like a secret, and the mirrored walls reflected two figures bound together by ambition and betrayal. Outside, the storm had not ended. It had only found its way inside. Morning light broke harshly over the skyline, but inside the Carter Corporation tower, the air was thick and suffocating. Daniel Carter walked through the marble lobby, his polished shoes striking sharp echoes as employees parted like waves. Their eyes followed him. Suspicion etched deep, whispers rising like smoke. Olivia Brooks joined him, her voice calm yet urgent. You have to seize control before the board seizes it for you. His jaw tightened, his silence louder than words. Inside the conference hall, seats filled with directors shifting restlessly, phones buzzing with investor demands. Thomas Reed sat with folded hands, gaze steady, his face unreadable as the weight of expectation pressed down. Daniel cleared his throat, every eye turning toward him like predators. He said, "We will not collapse. Not today, not ever." Yet even as he spoke, shadows of betrayal seeped into the room, and every nod felt forced. The empire trembled under scrutiny, and Daniel knew survival would demand more than speeches. Board meeting unfolded like a storm behind closed doors. Voices rose, accusations slashed across the polished table, and Daniel Carter absorbed each blow like armor cracking. Olivia Brooks leaned forward, defending him fiercely. The evidence is circumstantial, nothing more. But directors shook their heads, their loyalty fading like smoke. Thomas Reed finally spoke, his tone smooth and rehearsed. Confidence in leadership is waning, and markets reflect that truth. Daniel's knuckles whitened against the table as he said, "You think I'll surrender because of rumors?" Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. The tension was no longer about facts, but about survival, alliances, and ambition. A fracture spread across the boardroom like glass under pressure, and the empire that once seemed indestructible teetered closer to collapse. Late afternoon, shadows stretched long as Daniel Carter retreated to his private office. Olivia Brooks entered swiftly, her eyes filled with urgency. "Daniel, it's not just the media. There's someone orchestrating this inside." His breath caught, the words slicing through him like blades. He turned sharply, fists clenched, and muttered, "Then it's betrayal, and betrayal means war." Olivia's voice trembled, but did not falter. "We have to trace it carefully. Too many faces are smiling at your downfall." The silence between them burned with unspoken fears. Outside, rain streaked the glass like tears against steel, while inside the empire's foundation shook unseen. Trust had vanished, and suspicion was now Daniel's only ally. Across the city, in a rival skyscraper polished like a blade, Richard Hale watched the chaos unfold on live broadcasts. The rival CEO smiled faintly, sipping his whiskey, his reflection sharp in the glass. He said softly, "The empire falls faster than I expected." Around him, advisors chuckled nervously, feeding reports of collapsing shares. He lifted his glass again, savoring the unraveling of his competitor's legacy, every headline tightening the noose. Outside, the city glowed with neon life, but inside the office, the air was thick with triumph. Richard's gaze hardened. When kings stumble, vultures feast. Night descended heavy and relentless, but Daniel Carter remained in the tower, staring at the illuminated skyline like a battlefield. Olivia Brooks returned, exhausted but resolute. She whispered, "We're losing ground, Daniel, unless you strike back now." He turned to her, fire in his eyes, and answered, "Then we fight until there's nothing left to fight for." His voice was steel over breaking glass, a vow born of fury and desperation. The storm outside mirrored the one within, lightning cracking against the city's vein. Alone against the rising tide, Daniel knew that his empire's survival hinged on his will to destroy his enemies before they destroyed him. The following morning, a chilling discovery shattered any illusion of safety. Security reports revealed an internal breach, confidential files siphoned into unknown hands. Daniel Carter slammed the report onto his desk, fury rising like fire. Olivia Brooks whispered, "It's someone inside, someone close." He stalked the room, his reflection fractured in the glass walls, muttering, "A spy among us, feeding them everything." Each word carved deeper suspicion. His mind replayed every loyal face, now shadows masking betrayal. The empire was bleeding from within, and the wound was invisible. Later that day, Thomas Reed presented a bold recovery plan before the directors, his tone rehearsed and confident. Charts and numbers filled the screen, offering salvation too perfect, too easy. Daniel Carter narrowed his eyes, his gut twisting. "Why now, Thomas?" he asked coldly. Reed's response was smooth, because desperate times demand decisive action. But Daniel's instincts screamed, suspicion clawing deeper. Olivia Brooks caught his glance, her eyes warning silently. The room applauded Reed, unaware of the hidden knife. That evening, a figure from the past emerged like a ghost. Charles Bennett, the former CEO forced out years ago, met Daniel in a quiet lounge. His voice carried the weight of regret. "I warned them ambition eats its own." Daniel's jaw clenched, bitterness rawed. Charles sighed. "This empire demands a soul, and it always takes more than it gives." His words echoed like prophecy, a caution carved from scars. Daniel listened, silent, absorbing each word as though it were both truth and curse. In the dim glow of the research wing, an overlooked analyst, Sarah Mitchell, uncovered a critical pattern in leaked reports. She hurried to Olivia, breathless, saying, "These aren't random leaks, they're strategic strikes." Olivia's eyes widened, her hands trembling over the documents. Daniel arrived moments later, his gaze fixed on Sarah with unexpected respect. For the first time, the underestimated voice carried power. The underdog had risen, shifting the ground beneath the empire's feet. In a shadowed penthouse, the elusive investor Samuel Drake spoke with Richard Hale. His voice was calm, chilling. "Money directs the war, not loyalty." Richard smirked, raising his glass, "And Carter is bleeding already." Samuel's expression betrayed nothing. A face carved in stone. His presence radiated control, a hand pulling strings unseen. Far from the battlefield, he controlled its outcome with invisible chains. The Empire's true enemy was no longer visible but hidden in shadows, a force untouchable yet devastating. The boardroom air turned to ice as Daniel Carter entered, silence cutting deeper than words. Olivia Brooks spread files across the table, her voice sharp. "We've traced leaks back to our circle." Gasps echoed, faces shifted uneasily, and suspicion thickened like smoke. Thomas Reed leaned back, expression calm, but eyes betraying flickers of guilt. Daniel's gaze burned holes through the room, his fists tight, his voice cold as stone. "Who among you dares to betray this empire?" Silence answered, the weight unbearable. Trust fractured further, each face a mask hiding fear or deceit. Later that night, Daniel sat alone in his office, city lights glowing against storm clouds outside. Olivia entered, her face pale. "Daniel's sensitive contracts were leaked today," she whispered. He rose, veins tight, anger igniting like fire. "Whoever feeds them, I will destroy." His reflection in the glass fractured into pieces, a man splitting between fury and despair. The weight of unseen enemies pressed close, shadows lengthening around him as loyalty slipped further away. The following day, Richard Hale appeared on live television, offering a false olive branch. His words carried venom hidden in charm. "We extend a hand of cooperation in these troubling times." Daniel watched from his office, his jaw locking. Olivia whispered, "It's a trap." The rival's smirk on the screen was a dagger coated in honey. Daniel muttered, "He's drawing blood with kindness." The Empire was now at war, though no shots were fired. In a dim corridor, Sarah Mitchell handed Olivia Brooks documents. "Daniel has to see this," she urged. The papers revealed patterns linking leaks directly to insiders. Olivia's breath caught as realization sharpened. Meanwhile, Daniel arrived, shadows stretching behind him. His voice trembled with anger. Even the walls bleed secrets. The Empire's core was poisoned, not by rivals, but by those once trusted. At dusk, Daniel Carter stood on the rooftop terrace, the storm wind ripping at his coat. Olivia joined him, her voice low. Counterattack means casualties. His eyes fixed on the glowing skyline, voice steady and unyielding. Then we strike hard, even if the cost is blood. Lightning cracked above, splitting sky and glass towers alike. For Daniel, there was no turning back. The battle line had been drawn, and mercy had no place left. The markets opened in chaos, stock prices plummeting like falling glass. News anchors shouted collapse, while traders screamed into phones. Daniel Carter watched from the boardroom, his empire crumbling in real time. Olivia Brooks placed trembling hands on the table, whispering, "It's engineered, they forced this crash." Daniel rose slowly, fury steady. "Then they'll learn I don't break." His voice echoed over silence even as wealth vanished before their eyes. The truth shattered Daniel when evidence surfaced. Thomas Reed, his CFO, had orchestrated leaks. Olivia placed the files before him, her voice shaking. It was him, all along. Daniel stared, disbelief shifting into rage. "Years of trust in you stabbed me here," he muttered. Betrayal carved into him, deeper than any external strike. The empire's collapse had been seeded by a man who once vowed loyalty. Charles Bennett returned, his weary eyes heavy with memory. Over coffee in a dim lounge, he told Daniel, "I once thought power would save me. It only destroyed me." Daniel clenched his fists, silent, absorbing the scars reflected in the mentor's words. Charles leaned closer, whispering, "The empire takes everything, Daniel. It leaves nothing but ruin." His warning was not strategy, it was prophecy. In the war room, Olivia Brooks argued fiercely with Daniel. "Not all allies are enemies," she cried. Daniel's voice cracked with steel. "Doubt has no place here, not anymore." Her loyalty wavered under the crushing suspicion. Every bond now a chain ready to snap. The empire's leaders had become prisoners of fear, clawing at each other as enemies closed in. The shareholder meeting turned into public humiliation. Cameras flashed as angry investors shouted demands. Daniel Carter stood tall, his voice breaking as he defended his empire. "We will rise again," he said, but his words rang hollow. The empire's collapse had become spectacle, and every flashbulb carved deeper wounds. Olivia Brooks watched from the side, silent, her face carrying the weight of a war she could not stop. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil inside as Daniel Carter gathered his closest allies in a dim war room. Olivia Brooks spread intelligence reports across the glowing monitors, her voice steady but urgent. "They've moved for total control, Daniel." His jaw tightened, eyes burning as he said, "Then this is our last stand." Sarah Mitchell clutched her notes, fear mixing with resolve as she whispered, "The leaks are timed. Every move they make is precise." Silence filled the room, the weight of betrayal and strategy pressing down like chain. Daniel's voice hardened, cutting through the tension. "We fight with what remains." In that moment, unity was forged from desperation, and the empire's fate balanced on the edge of war. The boardroom became the battlefield as Daniel Carter entered, every director present and Richard Hale watching from a broadcast screen. Thomas Reed sat calmly, his betrayal still fresh in the air. Daniel's voice carried like thunder, "You wanted war, now you have it." Olivia Brooks stood beside him, eyes sharp, her presence a shield. Reed leaned back, smirking, "The empire was doomed before I touched it." Daniel's reply was steady steel, "And you will fall with it." The tension grew unbearable, the clash of power now inevitable. Every glance, every silence, every unspoken threat burned like fire ready to ignite. The full extent of the rivals' plot unfolded as documents and recordings were displayed on screens. Sarah Mitchell revealed patterns that linked Thomas Reed directly to Richard Hale's company. Gasps filled the boardroom, accusations flying like blades. Daniel Carter seized the moment, slamming his hand against the table. The truth has spoken, and your lies are finished. Reed's smirk faltered, sweat breaking across his brow as power shifted before everyone's eyes. Richard Hale's voice crackled through the broadcast, mocking, "Even truth won't save you, Carter." Yet Daniel stood taller, the first victory carved in the chaos. As the confrontation peaked, Daniel Carter maneuvered with ruthless precision. He exposed financial traps Richard Hale had hidden and turned allies back to his side. Olivia Brooks whispered, "They're faltering, Daniel, push harder." His voice roared across the room, "This empire stands, and no betrayal will end it." Yet as victory edged closer, the cost carved itself deeper into his soul. Friends turned enemies, loyalty burned, and the empire's blood was his to carry. For every inch of ground he gained, a piece of himself was lost. The boardroom exploded into chaos as Thomas Reed made one last desperate move. He shouted accusations, calling Daniel corrupt, his words cutting like broken glass. Daniel rose slowly, his voice low but deadly. "You were the knife at my back, and knives break." Security entered, pulling Reed away as he screamed. Richard Hale's voice from the broadcast was the final strike, mocking, "Even in victory, Carter, your empire is ash." Daniel stood in silence, his reflection fractured in the polished table, a king still standing, but surrounded by ruin. Morning light bled over the city as the war ended in silence. Daniel Carter sat alone in his office, empire intact yet fractured, the cost heavy on his shoulders. Olivia Brooks entered quietly, her voice soft. "We won, Daniel. But at what price?" His gaze lingered on the skyline, whispering, "Victory without peace is no victory at all." The silence stretched heavy, the weight of survival, darker than defeat. The empire reeled in the aftermath as employees whispered in corridors, unsure of their future. Daniel walked through them, his presence both feared and admired. Olivia Brooks whispered to Sarah Mitchell, "He saved the company, but he's not the same man." Sarah replied quietly, "No one survives fire without scars." The halls echoed with silence, triumph mixed with unease every step, reminding them the war had changed everything. That night, Daniel met Charles Bennett once more. The old mentor's eyes carried sadness as he said, "Now you understand the cost I warned of." Daniel's reply was quiet, "The empire survives, but I am not sure I do." Charles leaned back, shaking his head, "The throne always devours the king." Their voices faded into silence, the weight of power lingering heavier than victory itself. In the lower floors, Sarah Mitchell found herself surrounded by executives seeking her insight. Once overlooked, now she was the voice they turned to. Olivia Brooks smiled faintly, whispering, "The underdog rises." Sarah answered softly, "Empires fall and rebuild, but voices like mine will never be silenced again." Power shifted subtly, and the future bent toward unexpected ends. The night ended with Daniel Carter on the rooftop once more, rain misting softly over the skyline. Alone, he whispered to the city, "What remains when ambition devours everything?" His reflection shimmered in wet glass, a solitary king standing over ashes. Lightning flickered faintly in the distance, but silence reigned. The empire lived, yet Daniel knew his soul was buried within its foundations. The war had ended, but the cost would echo forever.